Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Alton. This is our online service for Sunday, February 28th, 2021. I'm Robin Berkeley and I'm president of this congregation, and I also serve as a worship associate. The First Unitarian Church of Alton is a small lay-led congregation located in Alton, Illinois. Due to the pandemic, our services are now virtual, and past and present services can be located on our church YouTube page. We hope to see you at our little castle on the hill sometime soon when we can return to worship together face to face. In the meantime, we welcome everyone to this virtual home of comfort, spirit, justice, and hope. We are Unitarian Universalists. And we begin our service and our worship with a prelude by our accompanist, Joy Heft. If you have a candle nearby, please join me as I light my own and recite our unison words for the chalice lighting. We hallow this time together by kindling the lamp of our heritage. Sorry, the words were missing in front of me and I couldn't find them. Our theme for this month is risk, and our opening prayer is actually a poem entitled Risk. And we don't know who the author is. It's anonymous, but I found it on a lovely website if anybody's interested. Risks. To laugh is to risk appearing the fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out to another is to risk involvement. To expose feelings is to risk exposing your true self. To place your dreams, ideas before a crowd is to risk their loss. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To live is to risk dying. To hope is to risk despair. To try is to risk failure. But risks must be taken because the greatest hazard in life is to risk nothing. The person who risks nothing, does nothing, has nothing, and is nothing. They may avoid suffering and sorrow, but they cannot learn and feel and change and grow and love and live. Chained by their certitudes, they are a slave. They have forfeited their freedom. Only a person who risks is truly free. Risk-taking can elicit both positive and negative emotions. We love the thrill of risk-taking balanced against the fears of the unknown. As the opening reading said, the greatest hazard in life is to risk nothing. Think about the risks we take every day to live our values as Unitarians. Where do we take risks as we think about that relative to our UU principles? We take risks when we decide to accept one another and encourage each other's spiritual growth. That's our third principle. We take risks when we engage in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Our fourth principle. There are always great risks on that journey of exploration. We take risks as we strive for peace, liberty, and justice for all. Our sixth principle. All of our principles certainly can be mapped to an idea of risk-taking as we think about our connectedness with each other, into our environment, into the living world. We always take risks. And we take a leap of faith to put ourselves out there, to be role models, to live our beliefs every day. This is what it takes. Deciding to believe in something is a risk because we don't know where it will lead us and how it will end, or if it will even end. But the greatest hazard in life is to risk nothing. So we as Unitarians will get up every day and decide to take the risk, and decide to take the risk to live our values as truly as we can. Thank you. We offer the gentle reminder that this community of faith is supported only by your giving. We need each other, and in times of trial, we need each other even more. You can mail your gift to the First Unitarian Church of Alton, P.O. Box 494, Alton, Illinois, 62002. Or you can give electronically by searching for the First Unitarian Church of Alton on the Givelify app or via the link on your webpage. As well, you can give through PayPal if you prefer. Give what you will, for you are a generous people. And if you know it, please join with me in our offering prayer. May this offering equip us to inspire love and to seek justice. Our first reading, actually our only reading for today, is about risk-taking. And I found it on a website. So if anybody's interested in knowing a little bit more about this reading, I'm happy to share with you. Many of life's greatest achievements require going outside of your comfort zone. Whether it means overcoming shyness to perform on stage, investing money to help your business grow, or putting yourself out there for the chance to find love, some of life's most rewarding experiences come as a result of taking risks. However, many of us have a difficult time dealing with the uncertainty that goes along with taking risks. A feeling of unease grows out of not knowing the outcomes and the fear of potential failure. What if I embarrass myself in front of everyone? What if I lose all the money that I invested? What if I open my heart and get rejected? What if I'm not good enough? Answer that with another what if. What if the point of taking risks isn't the outcome, but the process in and of itself? Through taking risks, we must confront our own fears, and sometimes that leads to failure. But what if that wasn't such a bad thing after all? Here's a quote from Stephen McCraney. "The master has failed more times than the beginner has ever tried." Many may have a negative view of failure, but actually it can provide an essential tool for building character. Failure makes us stronger and more resilient. People who fail repeatedly develop persistence in the face of difficulties. Look at the 16th president of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, who lost 8 elections, failed twice in business, and suffered a nervous breakdown, all before becoming one of the greatest American presidents. Through failure, he developed the persistence necessary to later lead his country through one of its hardest periods in history. Perhaps he never could have done that without experiencing so many failures himself. What does it tell us? Taking risks doesn't mean succeeding every time, and that's okay. The process of taking risks may lead to failure, but even that can make us a better person by increasing the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. Failure might turn us into better people, but that doesn't make it any less difficult to take risks. It turns out that building confidence can help in overcoming the fear of risk-taking. Entrepreneurs must go up against tremendous odds to build a successful business. What that means taking big risks without knowing the outcome. What makes them do this? Confidence, and a lot of it. In a study, Ohio State University management professor Jay Barney and Lowell Busenet of the University of Houston asked 124 successful entrepreneurs and 95 top managers to answer a round of questions and rate how they felt about their responses. While both groups demonstrated confidence, the results proved that the entrepreneurs had an exceptionally high level of confidence. Luckily, confidence is a learnable skill. Erica Casriel describes in her book, Living Fully with Shyness and Social Anxiety, the reality is that most socially confident people deliberately learn specific skills. That means through practice, we can develop better confidence, equipping us with the right skills to take risks. Even someone as seemingly outgoing as comedian Will Ferrell once considered himself painfully shy and claims he had to work very hard to overcome his lack of confidence. To do so, he would do idiotic things in public so that people would laugh at him. He told People magazine, "In college, I would push an overhead projector across campus with my pants just low enough to show my butt. Then my friend would incite the crowd to be like, 'Look at that idiot.' That's how I got over being shy." What does this tell us about taking risks? When we feel shy or afraid of something, we can take action to build more confidence. Instead of accepting himself as a shy person, Farrell had the courage to overcome his fears by facing them. In doing so, he felt more confident outside of his comfort zone. The takeaway? Taking a risk to achieve a goal requires courage to face the fear of uncertainty. No matter the outcome, either way, we grow through the process and become more resilient and confident. Better yet, building those skills helps us in taking more risks and improves the chances of achieving future goals. So I really, really appreciated Tracy's sermon from a couple of weeks ago, where she was talking about some of the risks that she took, um, and some of the challenges, of course, that she felt in some of the choices that she's made in her life. And I could really resonate with that, because I've made lots of decisions in my life, some of them very good and some of them not so good. Some of them where I took risks and it paid off, and some of them where I took risks and it was not a good situation. And that that whole concept of risk taking and learning from failure and stuff like that really resonates for me, because again, I teach decision making in the business school at SIUE. I'm very much focused on how can I get my students being able to take calculated risks, to be able to look at a situation and decide this is worth a risk, and I'm willing to accept the trade-off if it doesn't work. And these are not worth the risk, and here's why, because here's what the trade-off is, and I'm not willing to accept that. So there's all sorts of ways to be thinking about what it means to take a risk and to take a calculated risk, right? So let me kind of give you a little bit of background, a little bit about me, in terms of understanding why this is stuff that really matters to me. And this may or may not be a surprise to people, but when I was growing up, I was incredibly shy, introverted, not comfortable in my own skin. And I always sort of felt like I was this odd person out. And, years of, exploring who I am, great therapists, maybe not so great therapists in a few moments. But the bottom line is I've sort of figured out, how to be more comfortable with myself and in my own skin as I've become, and obviously an adult. I'm 57, going to be 58. And these are things that, I've spent a lot of time thinking about personally. But as I was thinking about my own history of taking risks and when I was comfortable taking risks and when I wasn't, this moment kind of came back to me. I remember watching the movie Grease, the one with John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John and Stockard Channing, who still my heart, still makes my heart pound with happiness. And I just loved that whole movie for some reason. And it's corny, right? But there was something that I took out of that meeting that really, really resonated for me. And I remember sitting there watching it. I think this is one of the few times I actually went to the movie theater multiple times to go see a movie, because it really, really resonated for me. I loved how Sandy looked at her life and her circumstances and her situation, and she said, you know what? I need to make a change. Now, I'm not saying that I would get dressed up in leather pants and cigarettes and, what do you mean, stud? That kind of, I love that line from that movie. Clearly you can see I'm a fan. I'm not saying that we need to necessarily go to extremes, but the lesson that I got from that I was able to extrapolate, right, from the movie was sometimes you have to take risks in order to make changes to your life when you're not comfortable with who you are and what you've been doing with your life. And of course, if I had been smart enough to recognize that my little crush on Stockard Channing was actually an indicator of I really, probably should be looking at my interest in women, and the fact that I'm a lesbian, would have probably served me better in my youth. But that's where a lot of that discussion of risk comes into play. When you are LGBT, we have to take a lot of risks in terms of how do we decide who we are, when do we decide to embrace our authenticity, even if it goes against the grain of what society tells you or religion tells you or anything along this line. And oftentimes we live inauthentic lives, afraid to take the risk because we're fearful of losing our family, losing our friends, losing our loved ones who support us. And so I suspect that's a big part of my own issues. But that being said, that movie really had a tremendous impact on me. And it made me realize that if I wanted to change, that was on me. And that it wasn't always going to be perfect and it wasn't always going to be good, but that I had to make that change for myself and decide what I would do, when I would do it, how I would do it, and why I would do it. And to make sure that I thought things through as best as I could, but also learning to trust my gut, to trust my instincts, to trust the way I saw the world. So that was a watershed moment for me, I think, as a kid. And I went from that to when I went off to college later, and then got to spend a summer in Berkeley, California, doing research, right? As part of an undergraduate program. But oh my goodness, how I learned to put myself out there, to take chances, to take risks. And that summer was when I really started to put it all into action. And I went out and I experimented and I traveled and I went into San Francisco on my own. I mean, this is 1983 and I'm like 19, 20 years old, and people thought I was crazy for going to do that. I'm like, no, I'm going to explore. I'm going to see the world. I'm going to see all these things. And it was such a delight to be able to do that. So I was very thrilled, as I went to Berkeley and learned a lot about myself that summer. And I came back to school, and wow, what a difference it made in my life. And it enabled me to really start to be willing to take more risks, like moving halfway across the country or all the way across the country, because I grew up in Connecticut, and Berkeley, California is about as far away from Connecticut as you can on the 48 states. So I also, as you can see, I'm wearing my Zion National Park hoodie today. And I decided to wear that today as I was talking with you, because that was also another one of those moments where there were some risks that I took. And those risks that I'm speaking of are about how I sort of looked at taking risks at Angel's Landing. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Angel's Landing. I'm sure some of you are already out there going, oh yeah, I know that place. It's crazy, it's wild, it's whatever. Go Google a video on it. Honestly, it's a really amazing view and a really, really scary experience. Now, this is where the idea of taking risks versus being reckless is about balance, right? And it's like, we should always be willing to take risks, but reckless is when we take unnecessary risks and we put ourselves out there in a way where we truly, there may be some really bad consequences because we're not really thinking through. So when we're talking about risk taking is about looking at the variables, looking at the pros and cons, making an informed decision to the best of our ability, to then decide that I'm willing to accept the downside of this by experimenting and trying to do something. And this is what happened. I went to Angel's Landing. This was probably the summer before I had my knee replacement. So my knee was not in good shape. I was in fairly decent shape, not great. I had been working out, obviously, to get ready for my surgery. I've been regularly working with a personal trainer, but I also knew that I needed to do something more, to take care of my knee. So we were out hiking, and we had done a whole host of different hikes all over the place, but we had heard about this hike, that it was supposed to be really amazing, but it was very difficult to get up there. And if you had fear of heights, which I do, really big time fear of heights, and if you were not steady on your feet and confident in your ability to move around, and I'm not an athlete for a good reason, because where my body is in space, it's always challenging for me. Like, I can't throw ball, I can't catch a ball. Many things are hard for me from that perspective, just because my eye-hand coordination is not always good. So if you don't trust your body, right, to be able to do the things that you need to do, you have to recognize that you can do certain things to a certain point, and then you have that risk reward trade-off. And so I decided that I was going to go as far as I could, right? I understood the risks. I didn't know what it would look like until I got up there. And I think this is actually a picture of it. And it's this very narrow pillar up here that you go along, sort of a razor's edge with a chain embedded in the rock. And you can climb up to the plateau, and the view is supposed to be spectacular. And but in order to get there, you have to hike up to a lower level, and then you have to go through this zigzag space where you zigzag your way up from the bottom to the top. And by the time you get up there, then there's another plateau before you can get to the next thing where you have to get on the chain and you work your way up to the last plateau. So there's multiple layers here, right? So I said, I'm going to go as far as I'm comfortable with. And if, the people I was traveling with, I said, if you guys want to go further, go for it. No problem. I'm going to take my time and I'm going to do what makes me feel comfortable. Because I knew what I could do physically. I also knew where my comfort zone was because of my height, my fear of heights. So I got up there and I got up the zigzags. I was so proud of myself, particularly since I was not, like I said, I was in okay shape. I wasn't in the best of shape. And I was trying to, hey, quiet, come over here. Come here, apologize to everybody. Come here. Apologize. Just say, I'm sorry for barking in your sermon. I'm sorry. All right, can we be quiet now, please? Sit. Sorry about that. One dog barks, they all bark. So, like I said, I have a fear of heights. I have all these sorts of things. So I was, and again, I'm also sort of working really, really hard because I have a knee that I need to have a total replacement on, and it's out of whack. My muscles are out of whack. Everything was not good. I made it up the zigzags, and I was thrilled to pieces that I had made it that far because that was really hard in and of itself. It was a very steep incline, like sort of like that, and you zigzag your way up the hill. So I did a zig, I sat, did a zag, I sat, did another zig, and I worked my way up, took my time, got up to the first plateau, and then I stopped and I looked and I went, oh, one more thing. I'm like, I'm going to keep going and see how far I can go. And I finally got to this place where you had to leap over a gap, get on some rock, pull yourself up, and then ultimately you got on the path of people, because it was like a train of people going up to the Angel's Landing with the chain and working your way up. And I got to the base of that and I looked at all the people and sort of looked at how I was feeling, how tired I was, and I made a decision to stop. Do I regret it? No, I really don't, because I knew myself well enough to know that I took risks already to get to that place, and it made me feel good. And I was excited that I was trying to conquer some of my fears, right? Conquering this fear that, height is a bad thing, and and conquering the fact that, I was trying this on my own when I wasn't in the best of shape. So I was okay with this. I lived with that choice, no questions asked. And I still don't regret it to this day, because I really was not in a good place to be able to do that. I think I would have felt better if there weren't 5 million people going up and down, the little chain path up to the top. And that's okay. And maybe one day I'll go back and do it, or maybe I won't. But either way, I know that I overcame an enormous amount of fears and took some really good calculated risks to allow myself to get to that place where I felt so confident and comfortable in my skin, taking the chance and then realizing, it was time to be done, knowing when to say enough, right? And that's the thing about risk taking is we're willing to take risks. I think most of us at some level or another, but we have to decide, is this the risk I really want to take? And when do I say enough? And when is it okay to say, I'm done, I'm not going to do any more risk taking, right? Trying to overcome our fears is also a big issue, right? How do we overcome the fears that we have by putting ourselves out there, by, doing something different, asking the guy or the girl to go out on a date, asking somebody to marry us, asking for a job, asking for help, asking for money. When you finally can say, I just can't do this, I need help. It's so hard for so many of us to ask for help when we need it. And even when people offer help, to accept the help willingly. So I think that's the thing. We have to learn, when it's time to overcome some of those fears that may be irrational or are real, but are able to be overcome, right? Sometimes our fears are irrational. That's what phobias are, right? I see a snake and I flip out, and yes, I get, that's probably a realistic thing to be afraid of if they're poisonous snakes. But, the average garter snake is not something that I necessarily should fear. But that doesn't mean that my fear of snakes isn't a little irrational sometimes. Like Indiana Jones, right? It had to be snakes. So yes, that's me sometimes. But like driving over bridges, I have a real um, immobilizing fear of heights. And driving over bridges is challenging for me. And I've had to do a couple of different experiences the last, over my lifetime, where I've had to just sort of hold my breath and drive over the bridge, even though I knew the fears that I had were irrational, and those were irrational fears. I don't know if any of you are familiar in Westchester County, New York. It's a bridge. It used to be called the Tappan Zee Bridge, and it sort of connected Westchester County with Rockland County, right across the Hudson River. So you would take this bridge, and it was very high. And if I drove on the outside lanes, I'd always have these fear scenarios kind of going through my head, going, oh, I'm going to fall off the bridge and I'm going to drive over this way. And what if an accident happens and I'm going to end up in the water? And what am I going to do if I end up in the water? And I'm like, and I'm spiraling, right? And I realized I got to stop this. So I pushed myself to anytime I would get on the bridge and I could feel that fear coming up, I stopped myself and I said, all right, it's just a bridge. The chances of me driving off the edge, unless I purposefully do it, are slim to none. Obviously, it's been manufactured in such a way that I will be safe. And I would hold on to grip that steering wheel, but I would drive over it as often as I needed to. In fact, I lived right at the base of the Tappan Zee Bridge, so that was something that I did fairly regularly. I had to learn how to go over that bridge. And I realized that even though I was afraid of heights and I was afraid of driving over really high bridges, that I did not want that to stop me from living my life. I was willing to take that risk because you never know what's on the other side of the river. Right? You never know what's going to be over there that you want to be engaged with. If you've ever been further up the Hudson River to the Rhinebeck Bridge, it's the same thing. It's this incredibly high bridge because at this point, the Hudson River further up is very deep, and it's like in a gorge, and there's high levels of side, the sides to the river are fairly deep. It's not quite like the Grand Canyon, but that idea that you've got the Colorado River at the base, and you've got these high walls on either side of it. And the Rhinebeck Bridge, the same thing. It's like driving over that. It's like, I'm hyperventilating. And I actually did it last summer. I'm surprised that I did, but I did it. As much as it was frustrating to me and scary, I still did it. I'm like, I'm doing this. I'm not letting this stop me. Another time that I actually had probably the most scary experience walking on a bridge, not even driving over it, was there's a bridge outside of Taos, New Mexico, again, one of my favorite places in the world. And it's a bridge that goes over the Rio Grande River. And if you've ever seen a movie called Wild Hogs, it had John Travolta, and it had William H. Macy and a few other characters in it. And they had to drive their motorcycles over this really incredibly beautiful bridge. And so the scene pans back and you see them on this incredibly high bridge driving their motorcycles across the river. And they had done all the filming for this movie, in that general area between Santa Fe, New Mexico, Taos, and that area. Anyway, also one of my favorite movies to watch. It's a delight. And when I was there visiting one time, someone said, let's just walk out on the bridge, because there's a whole walking path that you can do on either side of the bridge, as well as the road in the middle. And I'm like, I had already just gotten out of the car going, I just drove over this bridge. And the person I was with was like, come on, let's go walk on the bridge. I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. I'm with you. No, nothing bad's going to happen. I'm like, as long as you don't try to scare me or push me or do anything sudden to spook me, I should be fine, So I inched my way out, took a couple of steps, took a couple more steps, took a couple more steps. So finally I got out far enough where I'm like, I'm good. I hit my risk point and I'm good. And I was able to hold on to the rails really tightly, kind of meshed my arms so I felt secure, and I could look over the side to see the Rio Grande River at the base. Again, sort of those high walls on either side of it, and it was just incredibly beautiful. So I was willing to take those risks because I knew that the reward was good. I knew that the physical risk to me was probably very low, in fact, was very low. And while there were realistic fears, at the same time, probably the fears that I had were a little irrational around that. Point that I'm making here isn't that, go out and, take all the risks in the world, because that's not the point, right? The point I'm trying to make is you have to figure out, where your boundaries are and where you're willing to take the risk and where you're not. You need to do the research. You need to figure out what's the probability of this happening? What are the upsides? What are the downsides? What do I gain? What do I lose by being more willing to put myself out there to take that risk? And as I mentioned before, there's a really big difference between taking a calculated risk and being reckless. Reckless, we're not taking things into account. We are simply responding to our need for speed, if you will, the dopamine rush that we get from taking these incredible risks, and then allowing ourselves to sometimes make stupid decisions and have consequences that we need to deal with. And I think when we learn to recognize when it's the dopamine rush that we're addicted to, and not, and not really, the satisfaction with achieving something, that's where, we're being reckless, because we're responding to the neurotransmitter and not really responding to how do we make a good decision and why, right? The thing with dopamine, for those of you that are not in the sciences, dopamine is a neurotransmitter that helps us to make decisions, right? It helps us to predict patterns. It's the quote unquote sex, drugs, rock and roll addiction drug. When we like that rush, we like that experience, the dopamine skyrockets, and we want to fill that need constantly. And that's where reckless behavior starts to come into play, because our brain, the frontal cortex, that handles, right, these kinds of basic decisions. Should I jump off the bridge or not? Should I do bungee jumping? Should I, do zip lining? Should I drive really fast down the highway? That need for speed, as we've talked about, that floods our frontal cortex. And when our frontal cortex is flooded with dopamine, we're not able to make really good calculated risk decisions. We're not able to make any really good decisions. All we're going to do is do whatever we can to feed the dopamine rush, right? So a calculated risk is where we try to really bring mindfulness to the process and say, okay, here's the pros and here's the cons. And what is rational, what is irrational, what is feasible, what is not feasible, what is probable, what is not probable. And I try to balance out all those circumstances and then ultimately make a decision about how to move forward. That's the risk. And sometimes it's hard, right? Our heart could get broken. Yeah, our heart could get broken if we try to extend ourselves. But if we protect ourselves from not feeling things, then we're not living. We live then boxed in and not able to experience all that life had to offer. If I hadn't gone up to the top of Angel's Landing, I never would have seen some of those incredible views, right? I mean, I didn't go all the way to the top, but even at the level that I was at, it was amazing. And I wouldn't change that for the world, right? I went parasailing once, again, mortally afraid of heights, but I'm like, it's a calculated risk. I'm in a harness, I'm in a parachute. There's a system in place here of people that can help me. I might get hurt, but the chances of me dying from this is slim. So I'm willing to take this risk, right? So, I got up, and the reward that I got, parasailing while I was out in Hawaii was amazing. The risk that I take scuba diving, right? I could die scuba diving. No doubt about that, right? People die from scuba diving all the time. When I was an MBA student, the dean of our business school had a heart attack while he was scuba diving, and he died while he was scuba diving. So I get that there's real risks there, but I'm willing to take the calculated risk because I'm training myself. I understand what the risk factors are. I'm doing the trade-off, and I'm making a decision that it's okay. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do this. So, that's calculated risks, and we decide that the risk-reward trade-off is there. We're bringing mindfulness to our process, and we're deciding, how do I lean into this, even when it feels a little scary? What's the worst that could happen, right? What's the worst that could potentially happen to me if I ask somebody to go out on a date? And this is something that's in my mind right now, right? Because I'm single and thinking about dating, and maybe when the pandemic's over, get back to that sort of thing. And, I think to myself, well, what's the worst that could happen? Well, someone will say no. Right. I'm going to say no to other people too. Why would I not accept no for myself? So I'm like, all right, so maybe this risk reward is kind of worth it. And it's okay to do this. Reckless, though, is the dopamine rush. It's the sex, drug, and rock and roll. It's the idea that we have too much, telling us to go for the thrill, go for the moment. But in the end, that doesn't serve us because we take reckless chances on things with consequences that we may not be able to overcome, that can hurt us and hurt people around us if we're not making really good, calculated decisions. So one of the things that I really liked from the readings, and even kind of from the opening prayer, was this idea of learning from failure. That's where all the opportunities are. That's absolutely where all the opportunities are. That we learn from mistakes that we made. The old Maya Angelou, when you know better, you do better, right? And it's never about the outcome when it comes to taking risks, because we know sometimes the outcome is not going to be favorable, right? I could reach out to try to ask somebody to go on a date, and it may very well be that they say, no, thank you, I'm not interested. Sure, my feelings might be hurt a little bit, I might be a little bit sad, but I'm willing to take the risk because it's about the process of exploring that really matters. And we can learn from our failures. We learn from the mistakes that we made. If we don't learn from those mistakes, from taking risks, from, I think as Teddy Roosevelt said, from daring greatly. That's a Brene Brown issue too, right? Daring Greatly by Brene Brown is an amazing book, and I highly recommend it for anybody. It changed my life also, where I realized that sometimes I get locked in on things and I get fearful of things. And I've decided that even when I'm afraid, I'm still going to do the thing that makes me afraid. I think Eleanor Roosevelt also had something to say about, fear and risk taking. And she's like, do something every day that makes you afraid. Do it. Take the risk, take the leap, go for it. And so that's where I've had to sort of think for my own work that I've been doing, certainly in the last few years, as I'm trying to make some major changes in my life, is, where can I learn from my failures? Where can I learn about the mistakes that I made to improve myself, given what I've learned from those experiences? And I'm so grateful. I have a wonderful therapist, and I have excellent friends and family, and they've all been there to tell me, you're okay, you're doing fine, and you're learning from those mistakes. And even at 58, almost 58, in 2 weeks, right? I'm still learning, and it's okay. Learning is a good thing. Lifelong learning is a great thing. I want to kind of come back to the idea of the risk taking in the LGBT issues. And I think for me, the fear of losing beloved community, for me, the fear of losing my family, the fear of losing my church community at the time when I was engaged in Catholicism, and my friendship networks through my schooling experiences of people who are Catholic and conservative and sort of adhering to some of those key values. And that was an incredibly difficult decision for me to make, to come out. And it took me until I was 40 that I felt comfortable enough in my own skin to say, okay, it's time for me to embrace who I am. Should have probably honored my crush on Stockard Channing and when I was 17 years old, but I didn't. And it was a risk that I decided to not take at the time, probably because I wasn't ready to take that risk. I wish I had been, but I'm not going to beat myself up over it. Coming out at 40, sometimes that's the decision that you need to make. Live with it, move on, and embrace what I have ahead of me, not living in that past, in that past negativity and that past experience. But living the life of somebody who's LGBT, particularly for those who are transgender, this is a major risk that they can lose everything by making the choice to be authentic. And we all can. By choosing to be authentic, we may lose people, and even if it's not coming out, but it's whatever is the issue for you. When you choose authenticity, you run the risk of losing the safety network that you have, that you've built, the friendships, the connection to people who decide that whatever that choice is, it just doesn't work for them, and they cannot support it. I will tell you how much it meant to me. The other day, I was having a conversation with my brother, and he said something to me about, I apologize for the way I treated you when you first came out. He said we sort of dehumanized you, and that was not okay. And I sobbed because I knew that he had changed. And we never really talked about the fact that he had changed and he had grown and he had, embraced. He took a risk and he comfortably felt better about his ideas and of advocating for the LGBT community. And he does that now quite readily, whereas 20 years ago, that would not have been the case. So the fact that he reached out to me to say that to me meant a lot. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful because the pursuit of authenticity is a fearful one, because the changes that could happen because we are willing to, because we're taking a step in an unknown area, there's a lot we could lose. Absolutely. But there's a lot we can gain. And I think part of the thing that I think those of us in the LGBT community say for anybody who's trying to take a risk, right, is sometimes the fear of the unknown is worse than what it ends up happening to be. The fear of coming out, the fear of, engaging in a relationship with someone, the fear of leaving a job and pursuing your heart's dream, all of it is a risk. All of it is. And we could lose, but we also can gain. And if we don't take the chance, we don't give ourselves the opportunity to learn, to grow, to reach the authenticity that we all need and desire. So I think about, in concluding and wrapping this up, I think about the experiences of what it means to be Unitarian, and particularly in a world where Christianity is the rule of thumb for people here in the United States. If you're not a born again Christian, don't follow what they believe to be Christianity, oftentimes we feel very lost and we feel abandoned, and we struggle for people to hear us and what we stand for. And I think every day as a people of faith, or not a people of, if you're not a faithful person in that you don't necessarily have a spiritual belief, but you as a humanist or atheist sit here at the table and go, yeah, this is good. This is about how we treat each other. This is a good thing. Whatever those norms are, whatever it is that drives you. I think that we want to recognize the risks that we take every day. We take calculated risks. And we put ourselves out there and we live authentically and we love authentically. And I love the fact that our church was the only one in the Metro East doing same-sex marriages for years, right? We took that risk and we lost some people and we gained some people, and we lost, some credibility and we gained credibility. So we lose and we gain, and it's always a balancing act. And I think if you go back to yin and yang, and you go back to Hinduism and all of these things that we value as Buddhists, right? We value these things. It's about balance. that I'm gonna take this risk, and I recognize that I could lose some things, and we're always looking for balance in our life. So finding balance, finding our rhythm, figuring out who we are, finding that authenticity, and then living it. Because living our UU values can be a risk, particularly when people see us as outsiders and weirdos. I mean, we've heard of situations where people have gone into UU churches and have burned them or shot them up or, basically shunned them, vandalized them, you name it. We've heard these stories. So we take those risks, you know, and we do it, and we do it gladly, and we do it willingly. And we should be doing that. We should be taking those risks. So as you walk your next week, the next few weeks, the next few months, as we walk our way around the world in our daily lives, think about what risks you can take. Not necessarily big R risks that are reckless, but small risks. Reaching out to somebody, talking to somebody, sharing who you are, sharing what you believe, being authentically you. These are the things that make us, Unitarian Universalists, because the path doesn't matter, right? I'm not going to tell you your path is wrong. I'm going to say, watch my path, see what works for you, figure out the path that works best for you, take the risk, figure it out, and keep growing and learning, being lifelong learners. Thank you, and blessed be. Here are our announcements for the week. Number one, Reverend Claudia Hall will be conducting a service for our congregation in the upcoming months. I believe it will be the first weekend in May. And she's going to be highlighting the Jewish faith and their traditions and how they align with our UU values and traditions. She's asked for feedback on what people would like to know. Please feel free to email me or send me messages through UU Friends or through Messenger. I'm happy to relay this information to her so she can plan a meaningful service for all of us. Number two, our healing circle is planned for Saturday, March 13th, led also by Reverend Hall. Details are available in the church this week and the newsletter. Following this, we will be scheduling a discussion on how to have difficult conversations, and all of our congregants are welcome to join that. Our goal is to close out the year to ensure we have our right relationships covenant done before we return to our regular church year in fall 2021, hopefully face to face, please. As the weather warms up, announcement number 3. As the weather warms up, we will be looking to schedule work days on the church grounds. So look out for announcements. They may not hit our calendar for the month of March, but we will be making an announcement if we have a day scheduled sometime in March. And we will then make sure that we've got these work days once a month in our calendar for April, May, June, whatever we need throughout the summer. Number 4, please contact the church office if you have an event or an announcement that you would like us to share via our weekly Church This Week email. If you're interested also in receiving our weekly email, please send your contact details to church@firstuualton.org. Lastly, please keep Nancy McGilson's granddaughter, Avery, in your prayers, continued prayers. She has some severe health issues, and I know that they're working very hard to support her and to give her all that she needs to live a full life. So please keep her in your thoughts and prayers. We also want you to all to keep thoughts and prayers for a local family that reached out to us regarding doing a funeral. Their daughter passed away, leaving 3 grandchildren for the gentleman. And while I won't be talking about names here right now, I'm just asking you all to please keep them in your thoughts and prayers as well as they go through a really difficult time for these kids, losing their mother. And don't forget to join us next week at our virtual service here on YouTube. And then, of course, our weekly coffee hour, usually starting around 11 o'clock, unless our service is running long or delayed for any particular reason, in which case then once the service is done on YouTube, then we congregate on the YouTube, on the Zoom coffee hour link, which should be available to you in the newsletter. Check for that and the password and all the details. And now if you have a chalice lit or a candle near you, I invite you to join me in extinguishing the chalice. Not enough caffeine this morning yet. The light of truth and meaning cannot be put out. We are keepers of this flame until we meet again. Our closing words are from John Brigham, found in our gray hymnal. Go your ways, knowing not the answers to all things, yet seeking always the answer to one more thing than you know. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be, and have a glorious week. Hope to see you at our coffee hour soon.